Steel shrieked against concrete as the beam gave way. Jordan Hayes saw it happen in slow motion. The support cable snapping, the massive I-beam tilting, the black Mercedes sedan directly in its path. His hands were already moving before his brain caught up, dropping the level he'd been using to check the foundation pour, his boots pounding across the construction site toward the impact zone. The beam hit like God's hammer. Metal crumpled, glass exploded outward in a glittering spray, and the entire passenger side of the vehicle collapsed inward. Jordan didn't slow. 12 minutes. He had exactly 12 minutes to make the interview with Henderson Construction, the foreman position that paid $68,000 a year instead of the $41,000 he scraped by on now. $68,000 meant Isaiah's surgery fund would be complete in 18 months instead of never. It meant catching up on the mortgage, maybe keeping the house Ruby Washington let him and his son occupy for $800 a month when market rate was $1,500. The woman trapped inside was screaming. Jordan's father had pulled 2 people from a burning building in 1985, disappeared afterward, refused every interview. Hayes men don't help for applause, he'd told Jordan when the story finally came out years later. We help because leaving someone to suffer when you can do something, that makes you less than human. The driver's side door hung open, twisted metal sharp as razors. Jordan grabbed the frame, felt the jagged edge slice through his palm, ignored it. The woman inside was maybe 40, business suit soaked red from a gash across her forehead, eyes unfocused. Her seatbelt had locked, pinning her against the collapsed passenger side. The smell of gasoline was overwhelming. Don't move. Jordan reached across her body, found the seatbelt release, pressed. Nothing. The mechanism was jammed. He pulled the work knife from his belt, the one Isaiah had given him last Christmas, with "World's Best Dad" engraved on the handle, and started sawing through the reinforced fabric. His other hand braced against her shoulder, holding her steady as the vehicle groaned and shifted. "My daughter." The woman's voice came out thick, slurred. Concussion, probably. "Tell her. You're going to tell her yourself." 3 more cuts, and the belt gave way. Jordan got his arms under her shoulders, started pulling her toward the door. She was dead weight, not helping, possibly going into shock. The gasoline smell was getting stronger. Somewhere behind him, someone shouted about calling 911, about staying back, about the second support beam looking unstable. Jordan had her halfway out when he saw the construction jacket hanging on his truck's passenger seat, visible through the site fence. Navy blue with Hayes stitched across the back in gold thread, the only professional-looking thing he owned. He'd saved for 3 months to buy it, planned to wear it to the Henderson interview to look like someone worth $68,000 instead of $41,000. The woman's full weight was in his arms now. He lifted her clear of the wreckage, turned, and the world tilted. His boot caught on a chunk of concrete, and they both went down. Jordan twisted mid-fall, taking the impact on his shoulder and back, keeping her protected. Pain shot through his ribs, but he was already rolling, getting his feet under him, hauling her up again. He ran. 20 feet. 30. The sirens were getting louder, but they weren't here yet, and that gasoline smell? That was a timer counting down. 40 feet. Someone had opened the construction fence gate. 50 feet. The explosion wasn't as dramatic as the movies. No fireball, just a loud whoomp and a wave of heat that knocked Jordan forward 3 more steps. He set the woman down on the sidewalk, gentle as he could manage. Her eyes were closed now. Blood matted her blonde hair. Jordan stripped off his work jacket, the cheap canvas one, not the interview jacket still safe in his truck, and draped it over her shoulders. Her hands came up, clutching it like a lifeline, and for just a second, her eyes opened. "Thank you." The words barely made it past her lips. Jordan looked back at his truck. 9 minutes now, maybe 8. Henderson Construction was 14 minutes away in normal traffic, but if you left right now, pushed every yellow light, He might still make it. Might still walk in with that navy jacket and his resume and the references Mike Russo had written. Might still answer their questions about foundation work and load calculations, and why a guy who went to Cornell for 2 years was working construction without a proper license. The woman's breathing was shallow, rapid. Wrong. That was shock setting in, and shock could kill just as easy as the impact. Jordan stayed. The paramedics arrived 6 minutes later. They took one look at the woman, at Jordan's bloody hand, and the way he was keeping her neck stabilized, and moved with practiced efficiency. One of them, a black woman, maybe 50, with gray threading through her braids, glanced at Jordan as they loaded the patient onto the stretcher. "You stay with her the whole time?" "Yeah." "Probably saved her life." She gestured at his hand. "Get that looked at." Jordan watched them load the woman into the ambulance. She was unconscious now, an oxygen mask over her face. The paramedic with the braids climbed in after her, and the doors swung shut. Red lights spinning, siren wailing, they pulled away from the curb and disappeared into Pittsburgh traffic. The construction site supervisor appeared at Jordan's elbow, clipboard in hand, face set in that expression that meant paperwork and questions. Behind him, the damaged Mercedes sat smoking, the beam still crushing its passenger side. Mike Russo, the foreman who'd hired Jordan under the table 6 years ago, was shouting orders about securing the area, checking the other support beams, shutting down the site until engineering could assess the damage. Jordan's phone buzzed. Text from Henderson Construction. "We have your application. Still planning to interview at 10:15? It was 10:22. His thumb hovered over the screen. He could explain. Could say there was an emergency, a woman trapped, a literal life-or-death situation. Could ask to reschedule. But he'd rescheduled twice already. Once when Isaiah's school called about a fever, once when the truck wouldn't start and he couldn't afford the tow. Henderson had been patient, but patience had limits. This was strike 3. They'd mark him as unreliable and move on to the next candidate. And there were always next candidates for jobs that paid $68,000. Jordan typed, "Emergency came up. Understand if you need to move forward with other applicants. Sorry for wasting your time." He hit send before he could change his mind. The construction supervisor was talking about witness statements and insurance reports. Jordan only half listened. His brain was doing the math it always did, the calculation that lived in the back of his mind every waking moment. Isaiah's surgery needed $150,000. Insurance covered $23,000. Jordan had saved $31,000 over 3 years. Every spare dollar that didn't go to rent or food or keeping the lights on. That left $96,000 still needed. At $41,000 a year, minus taxes and basic survival, he could save maybe $8,000 annually if nothing went wrong. 12 more years. Isaiah's valve couldn't wait 12 years. The surgery was scheduled 6 months out, if his condition stayed stable, if nothing accelerated. If they got lucky. Jordan didn't feel lucky. By the time he finished giving his statement and got back to the apartment, it was past 2. The place sat above Ruby Washington's garage, technically a guest suite from when her late husband Frank was alive and their kids visited with grandchildren. 1 bedroom, kitchenette, bathroom with a shower that only gave hot water if you waited 5 minutes. $800 a month, plus utilities, and Ruby never raised the rent, even though she could have gotten double. Isaiah was at the kitchen table, colored pencils spread across the surface, working on another drawing. 8 years old, all knees and elbows, with his mother's dark eyes and careful way of studying the world before he spoke. The pencils had been Maya's, art supplies she'd used before the cancer, before the 11-month fight that ended 3 years ago. Isaiah used them like they were sacred objects, checking each one before and after, making sure the points stayed sharp. "Hey, sunshine." Jordan set his work bag by the door, wincing as the movement pulled at his bruised ribs. Isaiah looked up. His gaze went immediately to Jordan's bandaged hand. The paramedic had insisted on wrapping it despite Jordan's protests. Then to his face, reading something there that made his expression tighten. "You didn't go to the interview," Not a question. The kid was too observant. Had been since Maya died. He noticed things. Voice inflections, body language, the small tells that meant Dad was worried or sad or trying to hide both. Something came up at the sight. Jordan pulled out the other chair, sat down heavy. Every muscle ached. "What are you working on?" Isaiah turned the drawing pad. A building, rendered in colored pencil with surprising detail for an 8-year-old. Multiple stories, windows spaced evenly. Something that might have been a garden on the roof. In the bottom corner, tiny figures, a man and a boy holding hands. "It's our house," Isaiah said. "When you get the new job and we can stop worrying about money." The words hit like another falling beam. Jordan reached out, pulled his son into a hug that made his ribs scream in protest. Isaiah smelled like the cheap apple shampoo they bought in bulk, and pencil shavings, and home. "You don't need to worry about money. That's my job. I hear you on the phone sometimes, with the hospital people." Isaiah pulled back, met Jordan's eyes with that too old wisdom that grief had given him. "They say we owe them. You say you're working on it. But your voice does the thing." "What thing?" "The tight thing. Like you're scared but trying not to show it." Isaiah touched his own throat, demonstration. "Mom used to do it too, at the end. When she'd say she felt fine, but she didn't really." Jordan's chest constricted. Maya had made him promise 3 things as she lay dying in the hospice bed. "Take care of our boy. He's your North Star. Don't let grief make you hard. Stay the man I fell in love with. When you're ready, love again. I want you happy, not alone." The first promise was easy. The second he fought with daily. The third felt impossible. "I'm sorry you have to think about this stuff." Jordan kept his voice level, trying not to do the throat thing Isaiah had noticed. "You should be thinking about school and friends and whether you want pizza or tacos for dinner. I want you to not be scared." Isaiah went back to his drawing, adding details to the garden. "Mom used to say being scared is okay as long as you do the thing anyway. Is that what you did today? The thing that made you miss the interview?" How did you explain to an 8-year-old that you'd chosen a stranger's life over your own child's future? That math didn't balance, couldn't balance. But Jordan had made it anyway because some part of him, the part his father had passed down, the part Maya had loved, couldn't walk past suffering when there was something he could do about it. "Yeah," Jordan said finally. "That's what I did." Isaiah studied him for a long moment, then nodded, satisfied. He went back to his drawing, and Jordan sat there watching him work, memorizing the way his son's tongue poked out slightly when he concentrated, the careful way he selected each color, the unconscious humming that meant he was content despite everything. Ruby's knock came at 5:30, her particular rhythm that meant, "I made too much food again and you're helping me eat it." Jordan opened the door to find her holding a casserole dish, 73 years old, with posture like a general, and eyes that saw through every lie he'd ever tried to tell. "Heard about the excitement at the site." She moved past him into the kitchen, set the dish on the counter. "Also heard you missed that interview." News travels fast. "Frank used to work with Mike Russo's brother. Construction community small." Ruby started pulling out plates without asking, the way she had since Jordan and Maya first moved in 9 years ago. "That woman they pulled out was somebody important. Palmer, I think, owns half the buildings downtown." Jordan remembered the business suit, the expensive watch visible even covered in blood. She mentioned that while trapped in a crushed car? Channel 4 did. Been running the story all afternoon. Mystery hero saves Pittsburgh CEO. They got footage of you carrying her out, though your back was to the camera. Offering $20,000 to anyone who can identify you. 20,000. The number hung in the air. That was 21% of what Isaiah needed, just for doing what any decent person would have done. But taking reward money for basic humanity? That cheapened it, made it transactional. I'm not calling. Jordan started setting the table. Helped because someone needed help. That's it. Ruby gave him a look that said she'd expected exactly that answer and found it both admirable and frustrating. Your daddy would say the same thing. Did say the same thing back in '85. Stubborn runs in the Hayes blood thick as plasma. How is that a bad thing? Didn't say bad. Said stubborn. Ruby served casserole onto plates, chicken and rice, Isaiah's favorite. But stubborn don't pay for heart surgery. Sometimes accepting help is harder than giving it, and just as important. Isaiah emerged from the bathroom, hands washed, and climbed into his chair. Ruby kissed the top of his head, her weathered hands gentle on his shoulders. Her husband, Frank, had died 6 years ago, also from heart issues, and Jordan sometimes caught her looking at Isaiah with an expression that was part love and part fear. How's school, baby? Good. We're learning about architecture. Miss Chen said buildings are like puzzles. You have to make all the pieces fit together or everything falls down. Isaiah looked at Jordan. Dad knows about that. He used to study buildings in college. Cornell, Ruby confirmed. 2 years of architecture before life had other plans. Life meaning Maya getting pregnant, meaning the hasty wedding, meaning Jordan dropping out to work full-time because someone had to pay the bills, and Maya's art degree wasn't going to do it. He'd planned to go back, finish the degree once they were stable. Then Isaiah was born. Then Maya got sick. Then she died. Then it was just Jordan and Isaiah, and a mortgage, and medical bills, and dreams that felt like they belonged to someone else. Maybe you'll finish someday, Isaiah said, that hope in his voice that children had before the world taught them better. When I'm older and don't need as much taking care of. Jordan reached across the table, squeezed his son's hand. Maybe so. They ate. Ruby told stories about Frank, about the buildings he'd worked on before the heart attack took him at 67. Jordan listened with half his attention, the other half running calculations. 41,000 salary, 31,000 saved, 96,000 still needed, 6 months until surgery. The math never worked, no matter how many times he ran it. After dinner, Ruby headed back downstairs to her own place. Jordan got Isaiah through his homework, math problems that the kids solved faster than Jordan could check them. Then the bedtime routine. Teeth brushed, pajamas on, Maya's sketchbook retrieved from its place of honor on the nightstand. Can we look at Mom's drawings? They did this maybe once a week. Jordan sat on the edge of Isaiah's bed while his son turned pages carefully, reverently. Maya had drawn buildings, mostly, her own architectural dreams, rendered in pencil and charcoal, office towers and homes and community centers, all with the same flowing style, the same attention to how people would move through the spaces. She was good, Isaiah said, stopping at a sketch of a house with huge windows and a garden growing up the walls. Better than me. You're 8. She was 29 when she drew that. Jordan touched the page lightly. You've got time to get even better. Do you think she knows? About the drawings I do with her pencils? The question hit Jordan in the chest. He'd stopped going to church after Maya died. Couldn't reconcile a loving God with watching his wife waste away while their son watched. But he'd never told Isaiah that. Never wanted to take away whatever comfort the kid found in believing Mom was somewhere, watching, caring. Yeah, sunshine. I think she knows. Isaiah turned another page, then another, finally settling on a sketch near the back. A man and a woman and a small child standing in front of a building Maya had never finished. She'd labeled it in her careful handwriting, Our Someday. Dad? Isaiah's voice got quiet, the way it did when he was working up to something important. Would it be okay if you had a girlfriend someday? Jordan's throat tightened. Where's this coming from? Charlie at school. His dad got remarried. Charlie says it's weird having a new mom, but also nice because she makes really good pancakes and doesn't get sad like his dad did after his first mom left. Isaiah traced the figures in Maya's drawing with one finger. I don't want you to always be sad. The third promise. When you're ready, love again. Maya had gripped his hand with what little strength she had left, made him swear it. But 3 years later, the wedding ring still hung on a chain around Jordan's neck, because he couldn't bring himself to put it anywhere else. And the idea of letting someone into the space Maya had occupied felt like betrayal. I'm not always sad, Jordan said, which was maybe half true. I've got you. That's more than enough happy for any man. Isaiah seemed to accept this. He handed the sketchbook back to Jordan, who returned it to the nightstand, then settled under his blankets. Jordan kissed his forehead, turned off the light, left the door cracked the way Isaiah liked it. In the kitchenette, Jordan poured the last of the coffee, cold now but caffeinated, and pulled out his phone. The news story was easy to find. Channel 4 had gone all in. Skyline Tower accident injures CEO Victoria Palmer. Construction workers' heroic rescue caught on camera. The footage was grainy, shot from someone's phone across the street. Jordan watched himself pull the woman, Victoria Palmer apparently, from the wreckage. The angle made it impossible to see his face, just his back and the haze stitching on his work jacket. They'd blurred that out, probably worried about privacy laws. But anyone who knew him would recognize the jacket, the build, the way he moved. The news anchor was talking about Victoria Palmer's background. 42 years old, CEO of Palmer Holdings and Development, net worth estimated at $2.8 billion. Built the company from nothing after her father died when she was 19. Divorced, no children. The Skyline Tower project where the accident occurred was her flagship development, a mixed-use building designed to revitalize downtown Pittsburgh. Jordan closed the article. The money people lived in a different world, one where accidents happened at buildings that cost hundreds of millions, where $20,000 rewards were pocket change. He existed in the world where $800 for rent was a stretch, where a bandage from the paramedic kit meant not buying bandages at the store, where every dollar had 3 jobs assigned to it before it hit his bank account. His phone buzzed. Text from Mike Russo. Need to talk. Site shut down pending investigation. Probably 2 weeks minimum. I'll pay you for this week, but after that, you're on unemployment. 2 weeks without work. Maybe longer if the investigation dragged. Jordan did the math automatically. Unemployment would cover maybe 60% of his usual pay, which meant $600 a week instead of $1,000. $400 gone, just like that. $400 that was supposed to go toward Isaiah's surgery fund. He pulled up his banking app, looked at the numbers he'd memorized. Checking account, $2,047. Savings account, $31,312. Credit cards, maxed. Home equity, negative. The house worth less than what he owed. A noise from Isaiah's room made Jordan look up. Just the kid shifting in his sleep, unconscious, safe. That's what mattered. Not the money, not the missed interview, not any of it. Isaiah was alive and safe and sleeping soundly, and as long as Jordan could keep that true, the rest was just details. His phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Jordan almost didn't answer, figured it was another debt collector with a new tactic, but something made him pick up. Jordan Hayes? The voice was male, professional, unfamiliar. Who's asking? Robert Taylor. I work for Victoria Palmer, the woman you pulled from the accident this morning. A pause. Ms. Palmer wanted me to reach out personally. She'd like to meet you. Say thank you properly. Not necessary. Jordan kept his voice level. Glad she's okay. That's enough. She's prepared to offer substantial compensation. Not interested, Jordan cut him off. Helped because someone needed help. Don't need payment for basic decency. Another pause, longer this time. Miss Palmer expected you might say that. She asked me to tell you that if you won't accept money, she'd still appreciate the chance to thank you in person. 10 minutes of your time. She's at Presbyterian Hospital, room 412. Visiting hours until 9. Jordan glanced at the clock. 7:15. Isaiah was asleep. Ruby was downstairs if there was an emergency. Presbyterian was 20 minutes away. Tell her she's welcome, but I'm good. Mr. Hayes, have a good night. Jordan ended the call, set the phone face down on the counter. He should have felt relieved, should have felt good about doing the right thing, about not making it transactional. Instead, he felt exhausted, wrung out, aware of every bruise and pulled muscle from the rescue. His hand throbbed where the bandage covered the cut. His ribs ached with each breath. Jordan moved to the small window over the sink, looked out at Pittsburgh's skyline. Somewhere out there, Victoria Palmer was lying in a hospital bed, probably in a private room with real chairs and cable TV, being attended by doctors who didn't make you wait 3 hours to be seen. She'd go home to whatever rich people called home, penthouse probably, with a view and furniture that cost more than Jordan made in a year. Different worlds. They'd intersected for maybe 10 minutes, Jordan's hands bloody and her life hanging in the balance. And now they were separate again. That's how it should be. His phone lit up with another call. Unknown number again. Jordan sent it to voicemail, then blocked the number. If they wanted to be persistent, he could be more stubborn. The local news was still running the story at 8. Jordan watched it with the sound off, seeing himself reduced to mystery hero, his actions packaged into a 90-second human interest piece between the weather and sports. They interviewed the construction supervisor, who said all the right things about safety protocols and tragic accidents. They interviewed a city councilwoman who promised a full investigation. Nobody interviewed the mystery hero because the mystery hero wasn't returning calls. Jordan turned off the TV, checked on Isaiah one more time, still sleeping, one arm wrapped around the stuffed rabbit Maya had bought him for his 3rd birthday, and headed to bed. The wedding ring on its chain clinked against his chest as he lay down. He thought about taking it off, putting it in a drawer somewhere, honoring Maya's 3rd promise by at least making himself available. He thought about it the same way he thought about it every night, and made the same decision he always made. Not yet. Not tonight. Maybe never. Sleep came hard. When it finally arrived, it brought dreams of Maya in the hospice bed, her hand in his, her voice weak but insistent. Promise me. All 3. Don't let grief make you hard. Don't let grief make you small. Don't let grief make you forget that love exists, even after loss. He woke at 5:30 to his alarm, muscles screaming protest, and started the routine again. Coffee, shower, breakfast prep for Isaiah. The day unfolding the same way every day unfolded, with or without heroic rescues, with or without billionaire CEOs, with or without any of it mattering beyond the simple fact that Isaiah needed him functional and present. The local news was still covering the accident. They'd upgraded the reward to $50,000 for information leading to the mystery hero's identity. Jordan turned it off before Isaiah came out of his room. Didn't want the kid connecting the dots. No work today? Isaiah appeared in the doorway, hair sticking up in 3 directions. Site's closed for investigation. Means you're stuck with me until school starts. Jordan handed him a bowl of cereal. Think you can handle that? I'll try to survive. Isaiah's deadpan delivery, so much like Maya's, made Jordan's chest tight. They ate breakfast together. Jordan walked Isaiah to the bus stop, watched him board with his backpack, hand-me-down from a neighbor, patched twice, and his lunchbox, second-hand from Goodwill, but Isaiah had covered it in stickers and didn't seem to mind. The bus pulled away, Isaiah's face visible in one of the windows, waving, and Jordan waved back until the bus turned the corner. 3 years. That's how long it had been since Maya died. How long Jordan had been doing this alone. Some days it felt like 30 years. Other days, it felt like she'd died yesterday and the wound was still fresh. Jordan walked back to the apartment, planning to spend the unexpected day off calling about unemployment benefits, and maybe finally organizing the stack of medical bills that lived on the kitchen counter. But Ruby intercepted him at the bottom of the stairs. "You've got a visitor." Her expression was complicated, concerned and curious in equal measure. "Fancy car pulled up about 10 minutes ago. Woman inside asked if I knew where Jordan Hayes lived. I told her I'd check if you were receiving." Jordan's stomach dropped. "What kind of fancy car?" "The kind with a driver and tinted windows and paint that probably costs more than my mortgage." Ruby crossed her arms. "You want to tell me what's going on, or should I just enjoy watching this play out?" "I don't know what's going on." Jordan moved past her toward the driveway. "Give me 5 minutes." The car was a black Mercedes sedan, not the crushed one from yesterday, but similar. Expensive, sleek, completely out of place in this neighborhood where most vehicles were 10 years old and held together with hope. The back door opened as Jordan approached, and Victoria Palmer stepped out. She looked different without the blood and the panic. Blonde hair pulled back, business casual clothes that probably cost more than Jordan's truck, a bandage visible on her forehead where the gash had been. She moved carefully, favoring her left side, but her expression was composed, professional. "Mr. Hayes?" "Miss Palmer." Jordan stopped a respectful distance away. "You didn't need to come all the way out here." "You wouldn't come to me. Left me no choice." She glanced at the apartment above the garage, at Ruby watching from her front window, at the whole modest setup. "I wanted to thank you properly. What you did yesterday, pulling me from that car, you saved my life. Anyone would have done the same. 47 people walked past that accident scene before you stopped." Victoria's voice was steady, matter of fact. "Security footage shows all of them. Some took photos. Some posted to social media. You were the only one who actually helped." The number hit wrong. 47 people. 47 chances for someone else to do it. For someone without a dying son to save and an interview to make and a future hanging in the balance. But those 47 people had kept walking, and Jordan had stopped. And here they were. "Well, glad you're okay." Jordan turned to go. "Take care of yourself, Miss Palmer." "Wait." She took a step, winced, steadied herself against the car. "I want to offer you something. Compensation for..." "Not interested." "You didn't let me finish." "Don't need to." Jordan faced her again. "I helped because you needed help. That's it. Making it about money cheapens the whole thing." Victoria studied him, and Jordan got the sense he was being assessed, evaluated according to metrics he didn't understand. She built a $2.8 billion empire, didn't get there without knowing how to read people, how to find the leverage point that moved them. "Robert said you'd refuse payment. He was right." She shifted her weight, clearly in pain but trying to hide it. "But I did some research, Mr. Hayes. You work construction at the Skyline Tower site. You have a son, 8 years old. You rent this apartment from Mrs. Washington for $800 a month when market rate is $1,500. You drive a truck that's 17 years old. Yesterday you missed a job interview that would have paid significantly more than your current position." Jordan's jaw tightened. "Been busy, I see." "I wanted to understand who you were, why you'd walk away from $20,000 in reward money when you clearly need it." Victoria's expression didn't change, but something in her voice softened slightly. "The answer isn't in your bank account or your employment history. It's in how you made that choice in the first place. Life over opportunity. That's rare. It's basic human decency. It should be. It isn't." She reached into her bag, pulled out a business card, held it out. "I'm not offering you money. I'm offering you a job." Jordan didn't take the card. "I have a job." "You have a construction position that's shut down for 2 weeks minimum while they investigate yesterday's accident. No income for that period beyond unemployment, which won't cover your expenses." Victoria's voice was calm, professional. the tone of someone used to negotiations. Palmer Holdings and Development has a fleet of vehicles, construction equipment, company cars, maintenance trucks. We need someone who understands mechanics and safety protocols to oversee our automotive operations. $85,000 a year, full benefits, start date flexible. $85,000. That was more than double what Jordan made now. That was Isaiah's surgery funded in 2 years, maybe less. That was stability, security, everything he'd been fighting for. Why? The word came out harder than Jordan intended. You don't know me. Don't know if I'm qualified, if I'm reliable, if I can actually do the job. This is about yesterday, about you feeling like you owe me, and I don't want... It's about recognizing talent when I see it. Victoria cut him off, her voice sharp now. You spent 2 years at Cornell studying architecture before you dropped out. You served in the Navy Construction Battalion for 4 years. You've worked construction for the past 6 years, despite not having a proper license because of a paperwork error with your military discharge. You understand systems, structural integrity, how things work. You're overqualified for the position I'm offering, but you're also someone who made a split-second decision to prioritize life over personal gain. And that's the kind of judgment I want in my organization. The detail in her knowledge was unsettling. She'd done more than basic research. She'd dug deep, found things Jordan didn't advertise. The discharge paperwork error that had haunted him for years, keeping him from getting proper licensing, forcing him to work under the table. She knew. I appreciate the offer. Jordan kept his voice level. But I don't need charity dressed up as employment. This isn't charity. Victoria's eyes, Jordan noticed, were green, hard green, like sea glass. This is business. I need someone competent. You need stable income. Those needs align. Convenient that you discovered this need right after I pulled you from a burning car. Would you prefer I invented a false timeline to make you more comfortable? Victoria's expression didn't shift. I'm offering you an opportunity that benefits both of us. Whether you take it or let pride get in the way is up to you. The words stung because they were partially true. Pride was part of it, but it was more than that. It was the need to know he'd earned things, that his success wasn't handed to him by someone who felt obligated. Maya had understood that about him, had never pushed when he'd refused help from her family, when he'd worked 3 jobs to keep them afloat instead of taking the money her parents offered. I need to think about it. Take all the time you need. Victoria held out the card again. This time, Jordan took it. Thick stock, embossed lettering. Victoria Palmer, CEO, Palmer Holdings and Development. A phone number, an email address, an office location downtown. I'm at the park on Saturday mornings, Riverside Park, around 10. If you want to discuss further, find me there. She turned to get back in the car, moving stiffly, clearly in more pain than she wanted to show. Jordan found himself speaking before he'd decided to. You should rest. Doctor probably told you to take it easy for a few days. Victoria paused, one hand on the car door. Doctors tell me a lot of things. I rarely listen. Yeah, well, maybe start. Jordan gestured at her visible injuries. You got lucky yesterday. Next time might be different. Something shifted in her expression, some wall coming down just slightly. Thank you, Mr. Hayes, for yesterday and for the advice. She climbed into the car. The door closed. A Mercedes pulled away, silent and expensive, leaving Jordan standing in the driveway with a business card in his hand and a decision he didn't want to make. Ruby appeared at his elbow. That the woman from the news? Yeah. She offer you money? Job. You taking it? Jordan looked at the card. $85,000 a year. Full benefits. Start date flexible. Everything he needed, wrapped up and handed to him by someone who felt obligated. And that made it feel wrong, despite the logic. I don't know yet. Your daddy would say no. Ruby's voice was gentle. Too proud to take what felt like charity. But your daddy also died with $57 in his bank account and debts he couldn't pay. Pride's a fine thing, Jordan, until it stops you from taking care of what matters. She went back inside. Jordan stood there for another minute, watching where the Mercedes had disappeared, then headed upstairs to the apartment. Isaiah's drawing from last night was still on the table. The building with multiple stories, windows spaced evenly, the garden on the roof. Their house, Isaiah had called it. When you get the new job and we can stop worrying about money. The kid was 8, and he was worried about money because he heard Jordan on the phone with the hospital, heard the tight thing in his voice, the fear that lived underneath every conversation about payment plans and interest rates and how long they could delay. Jordan picked up his phone, found the hospital's billing department in his contacts, made the call he'd been putting off. This is Jordan Hayes calling about my son's upcoming surgery. Isaiah Hayes, account number. He rattled off the number he'd memorized. I need to discuss the payment timeline. The woman on the other end pulled up the account. Jordan heard keyboard clicks, then a soft intake of breath that meant the news wasn't good. Mr. Hayes, Isaiah's surgery is currently scheduled for 6 months from now. The total cost is $150,000. Insurance covers $23,000. You've paid $31,000 toward the balance. That leaves $96,000 due before we can proceed. I'm working on it. I understand. However, I need to inform you that we've received updated medical records from Isaiah's cardiologist. His condition has deteriorated faster than initially projected. The surgery timeline is being moved up. Jordan's grip on the phone tightened. Moved up to when? 6 weeks. We need the full balance paid within that time frame, or we'll have to postpone until funds are available. 6 weeks. Not 6 months. Jordan did the math in his head. $8,000 a year at his current salary meant saving maybe $600 a month if he cut everything to the bone. 6 weeks was 1.5 months, $900. He needed $96,000 and could save $900. The math didn't work, had never worked, was never going to work. Mr. Hayes, are you still there? Yeah, I'm here. Jordan forced his voice steady, not doing the throat thing. What happens if we can't pay, if we have to postpone? Isaiah's cardiologist would need to address that, but based on the medical records, postponing past the 6-week mark could result in significant complications. Complications. That was medical speak for his son's heart giving out. For Isaiah dying because Jordan couldn't come up with $96,000 fast enough. I'll figure it out. Jordan ended the call before his voice could break. He sat at the kitchen table, Victoria Palmer's business card in one hand, his phone in the other. $85,000 a year was $6,500 a month gross, maybe $4,800 after taxes. Still not enough to save $96,000 in 6 weeks. But it was better than unemployment, better than watching the clock run down while he scrambled for solutions that didn't exist. Pride or pragmatism? His father's voice or his son's life? The choice shouldn't have been hard, but it was. Because taking the job meant accepting help he hadn't earned, meant admitting he couldn't do this alone, meant all the walls he'd built since Maya died coming down at once. Jordan looked at Isaiah's drawing again. Our house. When you get the new job. He picked up his phone and typed out a text to the number on Victoria Palmer's card. I'll meet you Saturday, 10 a.m., Riverside Park. The response came 30 seconds later. See you then. Jordan set the phone down and stared at it like it might explain what he'd just agreed to, what door he'd just opened. But phones didn't give answers, and neither did business cards, and somewhere in Pittsburgh, Victoria Palmer was probably already back to running her empire, while Jordan sat in an apartment above a garage, trying to figure out how to save his son's life with dignity intact. The math still didn't work. But at least now there were new numbers in the equation. Saturday morning came with gray skies threatening rain. Jordan stood at the Riverside Park entrance at 9:50, coffee in hand that he'd bought from the gas station because the apartment pot had died 2 days ago, and replacing it meant $20 he didn't have. Isaiah was with Ruby, who'd volunteered to watch him with a knowing look that suggested she understood exactly what Jordan was doing and why. Victoria appeared at exactly 10, not from a car but on foot, wearing running clothes that probably cost more than Jordan's monthly grocery budget. The bandage on her forehead was smaller now, and she moved easier than she had at his apartment. She saw him, changed direction, approached with the kind of confident stride that came from never doubting you belonged wherever you were. "Mr. Hayes." "Miss Palmer." Jordan gestured toward a bench near the playground. "Might as well sit." They walked in silence. The park was filling up with weekend traffic, parents and kids, joggers, couples walking dogs. Normal people doing normal things, while Jordan prepared to have a conversation that might reshape his entire life. Victoria sat first. Jordan took the other end of the bench, maintaining distance, setting boundaries before the conversation even started. "I appreciate you coming." Victoria's voice was different here, away from the apartment and Ruby's watchful presence, softer, less polished. "I know the job offer made you uncomfortable. Made me suspicious." Jordan kept his eyes on the playground. A girl about Isaiah's age was climbing the jungle gym, her father watching from below with that mix of pride and terror all parents knew. People don't offer $85,000 positions to strangers out of gratitude. They do if the stranger is qualified and they have a legitimate need. "Your company managed fine without a fleet operations manager until Wednesday. Suddenly Thursday it's urgent enough to track me down at home." Victoria was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice carried an edge Jordan hadn't heard before. "You're right. The position is new, created specifically because I realized we've been hemorrhaging money on vehicle maintenance and nobody's been tracking why. Do I feel obligated to you for saving my life? Yes. Does that obligation extend to inventing positions and wasting company resources? No. I didn't build a $3 billion empire by making emotional decisions. The number registered. $3 billion, not the 2.8 the news had reported. Either she'd understated her wealth to the media, or she'd grown richer in the past few days. Jordan supposed at that level, a few $100 million was a rounding error. "What changed your mind?" Victoria turned to look at him directly. "Between Thursday and now, you said you needed to think about it, but you texted within 2 hours. What happened?" Jordan took a long drink of gas station coffee. It was terrible, bitter and burnt, but it was hot and caffeinated, and that was enough. "Got a call from the hospital. My son's surgery got moved up. 6 weeks instead of 6 months. He watched her process that, watched her eyes flick to his left hand. No wedding ring there, though the chain around his neck was visible above his collar, then back to his face. Calculating, always calculating. "The $85,000 won't cover it in time." "No." Jordan set the coffee cup down. "But it's better than unemployment. And I figure if I'm going to swallow my pride and take a job I didn't earn, might as well be one that actually helps." "You did earn it." Victoria's voice went sharp again. 2 years at Cornell, 4 years military service, 6 years construction experience. You're overqualified if anything. For a position that didn't exist until you decided it should. For a position that needed to exist, and I was too busy to notice until circumstances forced me to pay attention." She shifted on the bench, and Jordan caught a flash of pain crossing her face. "I don't do charity, Mr. Hayes. I do investments." "You're an investment I'm choosing to make because I think you'll generate returns." A child's laughter cut through the conversation. The girl on the jungle gym, hanging upside down from the bars, while her father mock-panicked below. Isaiah used to do that, before the diagnosis, before the doctors explained that his heart couldn't handle that kind of exertion anymore. "What's the medical condition?" Jordan's jaw tightened. "That's not relevant to employment discussions. It is if you're going to need time off for medical appointments or procedures. I need to know what I'm working with." The pragmatism was almost refreshing. Most people either avoided the topic entirely or drowned him in sympathy he didn't want. Victoria Palmer was treating it like a business variable, something to account for in the planning. Heart valve defect. Congenital. He needs replacement surgery. Jordan kept his voice level, clinical. 6-hour procedure, 2 weeks recovery, then normal life. Total cost, $150,000. Insurance covers 23. I've saved 31. Need 96 more in 6 weeks. And if you don't get it? Then we postpone until I do, and his cardiologist explains in very careful language that postponing is a bad idea. Victoria absorbed this without visible reaction. Jordan appreciated that too. No gasps, no hand clutching, just acknowledgement of facts and their implications. I could loan you the money. No. It would be interest-free. No. Jordan stood up. This was a mistake. Coming here, entertaining the job offer, thinking he could take help from someone whose world was so far removed from his that they might as well be different species. I appreciate the offer, Miss Palmer. The job and the loan both. But I won't put myself in that kind of debt to someone I don't know. Debt to the hospital is acceptable, but debt to me isn't? The hospital didn't save my life and then show up offering to fix everything. The hospital is honest about what they want. Money for services. Jordan stopped, trying to find words that weren't insulting. I don't know what you want, and that makes me nervous. Victoria stood as well. They faced each other across 3 feet of space and $3 billion of wealth gap. I want to feel like my life being saved meant something. I want to not be the person who walks past suffering when she could help. She paused, and something vulnerable flickered across her face before the professional mask slammed back down. I want to believe good people still exist, and they don't all end up destroyed by circumstances. The honesty hit unexpected. Jordan found himself looking at her, really looking, past the expensive running clothes and the CEO polish, and seeing someone who was tired in a way that had nothing to do with physical injury. I'm not a good person. The words came out rougher than Jordan intended. I'm just someone trying to keep my kid alive. If that makes me look noble, it's an accident of perspective. Then we're both accidents. Victoria pulled out her phone, typed something, showed him the screen. That's my personal number, not the business line. If you change your mind about the job, call me. If you don't, call me anyway when your son has his surgery. I'd like to know he's okay. Jordan read the number, didn't save it. Why do you care? Because 47 people walked past my car and you didn't. Because you had somewhere important to be and you stopped anyway. Because... Victoria's voice dropped lower. Because my father was a mechanic who died when I was 19, and I spent the next 20 years building an empire he never got to see. And sometimes I wonder if he'd be proud or disappointed by what I became. The revelation hung between them. Jordan thought about his own father, about the stories of the 1985 fire, about the Hayes family tradition of helping without expecting thanks. His father had died with $57 in the bank and debts unpaid. But people still talked about him at the old neighborhood bar, still told stories about the time Frank Hayes pulled those people from the burning building and disappeared before the news crews arrived. My dad died broke. Jordan's voice came out quieter than he planned. Proudest man I ever knew. Wouldn't take help from anyone. Worked himself into an early grave, trying to prove he could handle everything alone. I'm trying not to make the same mistake, but I also can't be the guy who takes handouts because they're convenient. It's not a handout if you work for it. It's a handout if the job was invented for me. The job was invented because my company needs it. Victoria's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, frowned, typed a quick response. I have to go. Think about the offer. Not for me, for your son. Pride is fine until it stops you from saving the people you love. She turned to leave, then paused, looking back over her shoulder. For what it's worth, I think your father would have understood. Helping people doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. Jordan watched her jog away, her form quickly disappearing into the Saturday morning crowd. He stood there for another 10 minutes, coffee going cold in his hand, trying to figure out if that conversation had helped or made everything more complicated. His phone buzzed. Text from Ruby. Isaiah asking when you'll be back. Also asking if that was your girlfriend at the apartment Thursday. Boys got questions. Jordan typed back. Be home in 20. And no, not my girlfriend. Just someone from work. Ruby's response came immediately. Work you don't have because the site's shut down. Try again. He didn't. Jordan threw the coffee cup in a trash can and walked back to his truck, which started on the third try and made a concerning noise that suggested the transmission was planning its retirement. Another thing to fix, another expense to juggle, another problem in the endless queue of problems that was his life. The apartment smelled like Ruby's cooking when Jordan got back. She'd made lunch, sandwiches and chips, nothing fancy but more than Jordan would have put together, and Isaiah was at the table drawing while Ruby pretended not to be waiting for information. How'd it go? Ruby's casual tone wasn't fooling anyone. Fine. Talked about the job offer. You taking it? Jordan pulled out a chair, sat down heavy. Isaiah looked up from his drawing, another building, this one with a garden that climbed the walls and windows that seemed to pour light onto the paper. That's pretty, sunshine. It's for Miss Victoria. Isaiah held up the drawing. She seemed sad when she came to visit. I thought maybe a happy building would help. Jordan's chest tightened. You don't need to draw pictures for people you don't know. But we do know her. Isaiah's logic was 8-year-old simple. She came to our house. Dad, when someone visits, they're not a stranger anymore. Mom said that. Ruby made a noise that might have been agreement or amusement. Jordan took the drawing, studied it. Isaiah had inherited Maya's talent, her eye for how spaces could feel. The building in the picture looked alive somehow, like it was breathing light and growth. It's real good, but Miss Victoria is a busy person. Probably doesn't have time for... Everyone has time for something that makes them feel better. Isaiah took the drawing back, protective. You said that after Mom died, when I didn't want to draw anymore because it made me sad. You said making things that are beautiful is how we remember that the world has beautiful in it still. The words hit like a punch. Jordan had said that during one of Isaiah's dark periods when the grief was too big for a 5-year-old body to contain. Had sat with his son and Maya's pencils and talked about beauty and loss and how they could exist in the same space. You're right. Jordan's voice came out rough. I did say that. So Miss Victoria should have the drawing. To remember. Ruby gave Jordan a look that said, Argue with that logic, I dare you. So Jordan didn't. He promised Isaiah they'd find a way to give Victoria the drawing, then spent the afternoon doing laundry and avoiding the stack of bills on the counter and trying not to think about the job offer or the surgery timeline or any of it. Monday brought news. Mike Russo called at 8 a.m, voice tight with the kind of stress that came from dealing with insurance companies and corporate lawyers. Investigations extended. They found structural issues beyond the beam that fell. The whole support system for that section needs review. We're looking at minimum 4 weeks shutdown, maybe 6. 6 weeks. The exact timeline Jordan had for Isaiah's surgery. The universe had a sense of humor. What's that mean for payroll? Means I can't pay you for work that's not happening. Unemployment's your best bet. Mike sounded genuinely sorry. I know that's not what you want to hear, but I got 30 guys in the same boat and no good answers for any of them. Jordan thanked him and hung up. Unemployment in Pennsylvania paid around 60% of regular wages, capped at a maximum that wouldn't reach his full salary anyway. Call it $600 a week instead of the $1,000 he was used to. $400 vanishing into the gap between what he needed and what existed. The business card sat on his kitchen counter where he'd left it Saturday. Victoria Palmer, CEO. Personal number written on the back in handwriting that was surprisingly messy for someone who ran a billion-dollar company. Jordan picked up his phone, put it down, picked it up again. Pride or pragmatism? His father's ghost or his son's future? He made the call before he could change his mind. Victoria answered on the second ring, her voice professional, but not cold. Mr. Hayes, the job still available? A pause. Jordan could hear office sounds in the background, keyboards clicking, phones ringing, the ambient noise of a building full of people making money. Yes. I'll take it. On one condition. Which is? You don't loan me money for Isaiah's surgery. This is employment, not charity. I work, I get paid. What I do with the money is my business. Another pause, longer this time. Agreed. When can you start? Tomorrow, if you need me. Tomorrow works. Come to the office at 9. Bring documentation, license, social security card, military discharge papers if you have them. She stopped. About the discharge paperwork issue, that needs to be fixed before you can start. I have contacts at the Veterans Administration. They can expedite. No. Jordan cut her off. I appreciate it, but I'll handle my own paperwork. It could take months to process through normal channels. Then it takes months. This job doesn't require construction licensing, so it's not relevant. Silence. Jordan could practically hear her recalculating, adjusting her approach. When she spoke again, her tone had shifted. Less CEO, more human. You're going to make this as difficult as possible, aren't you? I'm going to maintain my self-respect while taking a job I need. If that's difficult, so be it. Fair enough. 9 tomorrow. Ask for Robert Taylor at reception. He'll handle onboarding. Victoria paused. And Mr. Hayes? Thank you. For what? For saying yes. The call ended. Jordan set his phone down and stared at it, trying to convince himself he'd made the right choice. The math was simple. $85,000 annual meant $7,000 monthly gross, maybe $5,200 after taxes. 6 weeks was 1.5 months. $8,000 saved if he didn't spend a penny on anything else, which was impossible. Still $96,000 short for the surgery. The math didn't work, but it was better than before, and better was all Jordan had. Isaiah came out of his room, backpack slung over one shoulder, ready for school. You look worried. Just thinking about work stuff. Did you take the job Miss Victoria offered? How did the kid know about that? Jordan hadn't mentioned it. Then he remembered Ruby's questions, remembered that Isaiah was 8 years old and heard everything even when he seemed absorbed in drawing. Yeah, sunshine. I took it. Good. Isaiah adjusted his backpack straps. Mom used to say sometimes accepting help is braver than doing everything alone. I think she was right. The third promise echoed in Jordan's head. When you're ready, love again. Maya had understood him well enough to know he'd fight against it, would build walls and call it strength. She'd made him promise anyway, knowing he'd need permission he couldn't give himself. Mom was smart about a lot of things. She was smart about you. Isaiah headed for the door. That's what Grandma Martinez used to say before she moved to Florida. That Mom saw who you really were under all the tough guy stuff. Jordan got up, followed his son to the door, watched him head down the stairs to where Ruby waited to walk him to the bus stop. The kid was too perceptive, saw too much, understood things that 8-year-olds shouldn't have to think about. The rest of Monday passed in a blur of phone calls and paperwork. Jordan filed for unemployment as backup, called the hospital to confirm the surgery timeline, still 6 weeks, still needed $96,000, still impossible, and spent an hour staring at Maya's sketchbook, trying to remember what it felt like to have dreams that weren't measured in dollar signs and surgery success rates. Tuesday morning, Jordan put on his one good pair of khakis and the button-down shirt he saved for funerals and job interviews. The navy construction jacket with Hayes stitched on the back stayed in the closet. That belonged to a different version of his life, one where he worked with his hands and didn't owe anything to billionaire CEOs. Palmer Holdings occupied the top 15 floors of a downtown high-rise that probably had its own zip code. Jordan walked into a lobby done in marble and chrome, everything reflecting everything else until he couldn't tell where surfaces ended and space began. The security desk looked like it belonged in a bank vault. "Jordan Hayes, here to see Robert Taylor?" The guard, professional, courteous, almost certainly armed, checked a list, made a phone call, directed Jordan to elevators that moved so smoothly he barely felt the acceleration. 30 floors up in 30 seconds. The doors opened onto a reception area where the furniture cost more than Jordan's truck, and the receptionist's smile was practiced to perfection. Robert Taylor appeared before Jordan could get uncomfortable. Late 50s, Korean features, expensive suit worn with the ease of someone who'd been doing this for decades. He extended a hand. "Mr. Hayes, welcome to Palmer Holdings. If you'll follow me, we'll get your paperwork started." The onboarding process took 3 hours. Forms and signatures and direct deposit information and tax withholdings and benefits enrollment. Jordan learned that the health insurance was comprehensive enough to cover most of Isaiah's surgery. Not all, but most, which shifted the impossible math slightly toward difficult. He learned that Palmer Holdings offered 4 weeks paid vacation annually, which seemed obscene until Robert explained that Victoria Palmer didn't believe in people burning out. "She works 100 hours a week herself." Robert's tone was dry, almost affectionate, but she doesn't expect her employees to be quite that dedicated. They covered vehicle fleet operations, 273 vehicles across construction equipment, executive cars, maintenance trucks, and company pool cars. The previous system had been decentralized chaos, each department handling its own maintenance with no oversight. Jordan's job was to create order from entropy, track costs, negotiate with vendors, optimize usage. It was exactly the kind of systems thinking he'd learned at Cornell, the structural problem solving that had drawn him to architecture before life derailed those plans. Jordan found himself getting interested despite his reservations, asking questions about current pain points and cost centers, mentally mapping out solutions before he'd even officially started. "You're going to do well here." Robert closed the last folder, stacked the completed paperwork in a neat pile. "Ms. Palmer's instincts about people are rarely wrong." "She tell you how we met?" "She mentioned you assisted her during an accident. Beyond that, she respects your privacy." Jordan appreciated that more than he could articulate. The last thing he needed was office gossip about the mystery hero and his dramatic rescue. Robert stood, gestured for Jordan to follow. "Your office is on the 28th floor. Mrs. Palmer wanted you close to executive operations in case you needed direct access to decision makers." The office was modest by the building's standards, 12 by 12, window overlooking the city, desk and computer, and a chair that probably cost more than Jordan's monthly rent. His name was already on the door in brass lettering: Jordan Hayes, Fleet Operations Manager. "You start officially tomorrow, but feel free to spend the afternoon getting oriented." Robert checked his watch. "Ms. Palmer requested a brief meeting at 4, if your schedule allows." Jordan's schedule, previously defined by construction shift work and unemployment anxiety, allowed anything. "4 works." Robert left him alone. Jordan sat in his new chair, which adjusted in 6 different directions and supported his back in ways that suggested ergonomic consultants had been involved. Through the window, he could see the Skyline Tower construction site, still shut down, the crane motionless against gray sky. His phone buzzed. Text from Ruby. "How's the first day?" Jordan typed back. "Surreal. Have an office with my name on the door." "Fancy. Isaiah wants to know if you have a secretary." "No secretary, just a really expensive chair." "Living the dream. Don't forget to pick up milk on the way home." The normalcy of that last message grounded him. Milk. Isaiah's favorite cereal. The routine tasks that persisted regardless of job changes or medical crises or any of it. Jordan set his phone down and spent the next 3 hours diving into vehicle maintenance records, building spreadsheets, identifying patterns of waste and inefficiency. He lost himself in the work the way he used to lose himself in architecture problems at Cornell. The satisfaction of finding elegant solutions to messy realities. By 4 o'clock, he had preliminary recommendations for consolidating maintenance vendors and implementing a centralized tracking system that would save Palmer Holdings approximately $400,000 annually. $400,000. That number was Isaiah's surgery 17 times over. The wealth gap wasn't just a gap. It was a canyon, an ocean, a distance so vast that Jordan couldn't conceptualize it in any meaningful way. Robert appeared at 3:55. Palmer is ready for you. Victoria's office took up a quarter of the 30th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows on 2 walls, view of Pittsburgh spreading out like a model of itself, the rivers visible as silver threads through the urban landscape. The furniture was modern but not cold, the space somehow managing to feel both professional and lived in. A couch sat against one wall, coffee table stacked with architectural magazines and building proposals. Victoria stood at her desk, reviewing something on her computer. She changed from running clothes to business attire, tailored suit that probably cost more than Jordan's first car, hair pulled back severe, the bandage gone from her forehead, revealing a healing cut that would probably scar. She looked up when Robert announced Jordan, and her expression shifted from concentration to something warmer. "Mr. Hayes, please, sit." Jordan took the chair across from her desk. Robert withdrew, closing the door with a soft click that somehow made the massive office feel intimate. "How's your first day?" "Productive. Your vehicle maintenance costs are out of control. I can cut them by 40% within 6 months. Victoria's eyebrows rose. "That's a bold claim. You're using 17 different vendors across departments, none of them negotiating bulk rates. Consolidate to 3 preferred vendors. Implement scheduled maintenance instead of reactive repairs. Track usage patterns to optimize deployment. 400,000 saved annually, conservative estimate." She studied him for a long moment. Jordan met her gaze, refusing to be intimidated by the office, or the wealth, or the $3 billion empire pressing down from above. "I knew you'd be good at this." Victoria pulled up something on her computer, turned the monitor so Jordan could see. A spreadsheet, similar to the one he'd been building, but with 5 years of data. "I've been tracking it myself, didn't have time to implement solutions. Your numbers match mine almost exactly." "So you did need this position." "I told you I don't waste company resources on emotional decisions." She closed the spreadsheet. "But I also don't pretend my decisions aren't influenced by circumstances. Would I have created this position this week if we hadn't met? Probably not. Does that make it less necessary? No." Jordan wanted to argue but couldn't find the angle. She was being honest about the timing while maintaining that the business case was solid. It was a masterclass in threading the needle between obligation and pragmatism. "I have something for you." Victoria opened a drawer, pulled out an envelope. "The licensing issue. I know you said to leave it alone, but I made some calls anyway." "The paperwork error in your discharge can be corrected with a single form and 2 signatures. I've attached the documentation you need and the contacts at the VA who can process it. You don't have to use it, but you should have the option." Jordan took the envelope without opening it. "You don't take no for an answer easily." "I take no for an answer when I agree with the reasoning. In this case, I don't. Your military service shouldn't haunt your career because someone filed paperwork incorrectly." Victoria's voice softened slightly. "It's not charity to fix a bureaucratic mistake. It's justice." The distinction mattered. Jordan turned the envelope over in his hands, felt the weight of it, forms and contacts, and the possibility of finally having the credentials he'd earned 8 years ago. "Thank you." "You're welcome." Victoria stood, moved to the windows. Jordan followed, and they stood side by side looking out at the city. I meant what I said Saturday, about wanting to know your son is okay. Will you tell me when the surgery happens? Why do you care? Jordan asked the question differently this time, without the edge. Genuine curiosity about what motivated someone who had everything to concern herself with someone who had nothing. Victoria was quiet for so long, Jordan thought she wouldn't answer. When she spoke, her voice carried weight that suggested truth she didn't share often. When I was 19, my father had a heart attack in his shop. Massive. Unsurvivable. I was at Penn studying business, couldn't get home in time to say goodbye. She touched the window glass lightly. He worked 6 days a week his entire adult life, never took vacations, saved every penny to put me through school. Died with $17,000 in medical debt because he'd been putting off his own health care to pay my tuition. Jordan absorbed this. The parallel to his own situation was obvious. Parent sacrificing for child, money always the limiting factor, time running out faster than resources accumulated. I'm sorry. It was 23 years ago. I've built an empire he never got to see, made more money than he could have imagined, but I can't shake the feeling that he'd be disappointed somehow. That I've forgotten what actually matters in pursuit of what merely counts. She turned away from the window. Your son is 8 years old, and you're trying to save his life while working construction and living in someone's garage apartment. You're what my father was, someone who measures wealth in different currency than dollars. I want your son to be okay, because people like you and your son deserve better outcomes than people like my father got. The honesty was devastating. Jordan found himself without defenses, without the walls he usually maintained, just standing in this absurd office 30 floors above Pittsburgh, trying to process that Victoria Palmer's wealth came from the same place his poverty did. Love, loss, the desperate need to make meaning from tragedy. He's having the surgery in 6 weeks. Jordan's voice came out rough. At Children's Hospital. 6 hours, then recovery. The doctors are confident, but there's always risk. I'd like to send flowers to the hospital room after. You don't? I know I don't have to. I'd like to anyway. Victoria returned to her desk, picked up a notepad, wrote something. This is my personal cell, not the office line, not Robert's extension. If anything happens with your son, complications, good news, anything, you can reach me directly, day or night. Jordan took the paper. The number was different from the one on her business card. Truly personal. The kind of access that probably came with explicit instructions to assistants about when calls should be forwarded. I appreciate it. They stood in silence for a moment, the office's ambient sounds filling the space. HVAC humming, distant phones, the city's white noise filtering through triple-pane glass. One more thing. Victoria pulled another envelope from her desk. This month's paycheck. Robert mentioned you start officially tomorrow, but you've already completed enough work today to earn it. Jordan started to protest, saw her expression, stopped. Sometimes accepting help was braver than fighting. Maya had said it. Isaiah had repeated it. Maybe it was time to listen. Thank you. For all of it. You're welcome. Now go home to your son. Tomorrow, we revolutionize fleet operations. Jordan left before the emotion in his throat could become visible. The elevator ride down felt longer than the ride up, like he was descending from altitude and his ears needed to pop. By the time he reached the lobby, the world had rearranged itself into new configuration. Employed instead of desperate, provisioned instead of scrambling. Still terrified for Isaiah, but with slightly better tools to fight with. The envelope Victoria had given him contained a check for $7,300, a full month's salary including benefits deduction. Jordan stared at it in his truck, doing math. $7,000 meant the surgery fund would grow by about $4,000 monthly after living expenses. 6 weeks was 1.5 months. $6,000 toward $96,000 needed. The math still didn't work, But the gap was smaller than it had been yesterday, and smaller was progress. Jordan stopped for milk on the way home like Ruby had requested. Also stopped at the craft store, bought a simple frame for Isaiah's drawing, the one meant for Victoria to remember that beauty and grief could coexist. $40 he probably shouldn't spend, but Isaiah's face when he saw the framed drawing made it worth every penny. "We can give it to her?" Isaiah's eyes lit up. "We'll find a way." That night, after dinner and homework and the bedtime routine, Jordan sat at the kitchen table with Maya's sketchbook. He hadn't opened it in months, had let it become Isaiah's connection to his mother, while Jordan maintained his through the wedding ring on its chain and the promises he'd made. The pages were familiar, buildings and spaces, Maya's vision of what architecture could be when it prioritized human experience over pure function. She'd been good, genuinely talented, the kind of artist who saw the world in light and shadow and possibility. Near the back, Jordan found a page he'd forgotten, a sketch of him, done from memory during one of their late nights at Cornell when they were just dating and everything was possibility. Maya had caught something in his expression, some quality Jordan didn't recognize. Hope, maybe? Belief that the world made sense and effort mattered and love was enough. That Jordan felt impossibly distant from the one sitting in this apartment calculating surgery costs and trying to figure out how to let a billionaire CEO into his life without losing himself in the process. But he was still the same person, still made the same choice to stop when others walked past, still prioritized Isaiah above everything else, still carried Maya's promises like gospel truth even when they scared him. Jordan's phone buzzed, text from an unknown number. "This is Victoria. I forgot to mention, there's a park bench near the playground at Riverside. Same one we talked at Saturday. I'm there most Saturday mornings around 10, if you ever want to talk about something other than fleet operations. No pressure. Just an option." He stared at the message for a long time before responding. "Isaiah wants to give you something. A drawing he made. Maybe this Saturday?" The reply came quickly. "I'd like that. 10 o'clock. I'll bring coffee." Jordan set his phone down and went to check on Isaiah one more time. His son slept soundly, chest rising and falling with the rhythm that would need mechanical assistance in 6 weeks to stay steady. The surgery would work. Had to work. Because the alternative was math that didn't just fail to add up, it subtracted everything that mattered. Saturday arrived with late October wind stripping leaves from the trees at Riverside Park. Jordan held Isaiah's hand as they crossed the parking lot, the framed drawing tucked under his other arm wrapped in brown paper that Isaiah had decorated with colored pencils. Stars and buildings and something that might have been a heart, rendered with 8-year-old precision. Victoria was already at the bench, 2 coffee cups beside her, and a folder open on her lap. She looked up as they approached, and her expression shifted, the CEO mask falling away to reveal something softer, more uncertain. She stood, seemed unsure whether to extend a hand or maintain distance. Isaiah solved the problem by walking straight up to her. "I made you something." Jordan unwrapped the drawing, handed it to his son. Isaiah held it out with both hands, ceremonial, like he was presenting something sacred. "It's a happy building, because you seemed sad when you came to visit, and Dad says buildings can make people feel things. So I thought maybe this one would make you feel better." Victoria took the drawing carefully, held it up to catch the morning light. Her expression did something Jordan couldn't quite read, surprise and gratitude and something that looked like pain all mixed together. She studied the garden climbing the walls, the windows pouring light, the careful attention Isaiah had paid to making beauty. "This is extraordinary." Her voice came out rough. "I've seen professional architectural renderings that weren't this thoughtful." Isaiah beamed. "Mom was an artist. She taught me before she died. Well, not really taught because I was only 5, but I watched her draw a lot and I remember how she looked at things. The casual mention of Maya made Jordan's chest tighten. Isaiah talked about his mother the way some kids talked about favorite teachers. Important, but historical. Loved, but not present. 3 years was long enough for an 8-year-old's grief to settle into something manageable, small enough to carry without being crushed. Your mother sounds like she was very talented. She was. Dad keeps her sketchbook so I can look at her drawings. Sometimes I try to copy them, but mostly I make my own now. Isaiah pointed at the framed picture. Do you like it? I love it. This is going in my office where I can see it every day. Victoria met Jordan's eyes over Isaiah's head, and there was genuine emotion there, not politeness or obligation. Thank you, Isaiah. This means more than you know. They sat on the bench, Isaiah between them, Jordan and Victoria flanking like bookends. Victoria pulled out the coffees, handed one to Jordan. It was better than gas station coffee, actually tasted like someone had thought about flavor beyond caffeine delivery. How's the first week been? Victoria directed the question at Jordan, but kept her attention partially on Isaiah, who'd pulled out his sketchbook and was drawing the park. Productive. I've drafted vendor consolidation proposals and usage optimization protocols. Should be ready to present to department heads by next week. You work fast. Turns out when you give someone a problem they're actually qualified to solve, they solve it quickly. Jordan took a long drink of coffee. Also turns out your company has been bleeding money in ways that are almost impressive. The sheer variety of inefficiency is remarkable. Victoria's laugh was unexpected, genuine. That's the most polite way anyone's ever told me my systems are broken. They're not broken. They're just decentralized past the point of functionality. Jordan watched Isaiah sketch a tree, his hand moving with Maya's unconscious grace. It's fixable. Everything's fixable with enough attention and resources. The words landed with more weight than Jordan had intended. Victoria heard it too. The double meaning, the way he was talking about vehicle maintenance and also talking about everything else. How's Isaiah's surgery timeline looking? Jordan glanced at his son, who was absorbed in his drawing, earbuds in now, probably listening to the audiobook Ruby had gotten him about kid detectives, out of earshot. 4 weeks left. Hospital called yesterday to confirm the schedule. 6-hour procedure starting at 7 a.m. They want him admitted the night before for prep. And the money? Getting there. Slowly. Jordan didn't elaborate. The math was still impossible. $4,000 a month saved meant $16,000 over 4 weeks. Still $80,000 short. But impossible was better than hopeless, and he was working on converting one into the other. Victoria opened the folder on her lap, pulled out a document, handed it to Jordan. He scanned it quickly, legal language dense and formal, but the key numbers jumped out. Palmer Holdings Employee Medical Assistance Fund. Matching contributions up to $100,000 for catastrophic medical expenses. Established October 2024. What is this? Corporate benefit. We established it last week for employees facing significant medical costs. You contribute what you can. Company matches dollar for dollar up to the cap. Victoria's voice was carefully neutral, professional. Robert will handle the paperwork. Completely standard, nothing special about it. Jordan read the document again, slower. Established October 2024, last week, right after he'd started working there, right after Victoria had learned about Isaiah's surgery timeline. This is new. The benefit is new. The need isn't. Victoria met his gaze directly. I have 270 employees. Statistically, some of them face medical crises. She took the folder back. You can use it or not, but Isaiah's surgery is in 4 weeks, and pride doesn't keep hearts beating. The bluntness hit harder than gentleness would have. Jordan thought about his father dying with $57 in the bank, about Maya's promises, about Isaiah drawing trees in a park while his heart counted down to failure. If I put in $16,000 over the next month, the company matches? Dollar for dollar. 16 becomes 32, plus whatever you've already saved. The math clicked into place. 31,000 saved, 16,000 over 4 weeks. Brutally tight, but possible if Jordan didn't spend money on anything except absolute survival. 47 total. Company match of 16 made 63, plus the insurance covering 23,000 meant 86 total. Still 14,000 short of the 96 needed, but close enough that maybe the hospital would work with him on a payment plan for the remainder. Why are you doing this? Jordan kept his voice low, aware of Isaiah nearby, even with earbuds in. The job, the benefits, all of it. You don't owe me this much. Victoria was quiet for a long moment, watching Isaiah draw. When she spoke, her voice carried the same weight it had in her office when she'd talked about her father. When I was 23, I watched my company's first building go up. Small office complex, nothing impressive, but it was mine. My design, my financing, my vision. I stood there at the construction site and thought about my father, about how he never got to see me succeed, about how the $17,000 in medical debt he died owing could have been paid from my first week's profit. She paused. I've spent 20 years building things and making money, and I can't shake the feeling that none of it matters because the people who should have benefited are gone. Your son is 8 years old and alive and fixable. That matters more than any building I'll ever construct. Isaiah pulled out one earbud. Are you talking about me? We're talking about boring adult stuff, Jordan deflected. How's the drawing coming? Good. I'm putting you both in it. You're on the bench talking, and I'm drawing you drawing me. It's called meta. Isaiah's serious expression, like he was explaining quantum physics, made both adults smile. Miss Chen taught us that word. It means the thing is about itself. That's very meta, Victoria agreed. Her phone buzzed. She checked it, frowned. I need to take this. Work emergency. Give me 5 minutes? She walked far enough away that our conversation became indistinct murmur. Jordan watched Isaiah draw, watched Victoria pace while talking on her phone, watched the park fill up with weekend people living normal lives where medical crises and impossible math weren't the constant background radiation. Do you like her? Isaiah's question came without preamble, without looking up from his sketchbook. She's my boss. I work for her. That's not what I asked. Isaiah switched to a blue pencil, added sky to his drawing. You look at her different than you look at other people. Jordan's instinct was to deflect, but Isaiah had Maya's ability to see through deflection like glass. She's been very kind to us. I'm grateful. Grateful is different than like. Isaiah added clouds now, careful strokes that suggested movement. It's okay if you like her. Mom's been gone 3 years. You're allowed to like people. The permission, offered so casually by an 8-year-old who'd lost his mother and understood grief better than most adults, hit Jordan somewhere behind his ribs. He put his arm around Isaiah's shoulders, pulled him close. You're too smart for your own good, sunshine. I know. Miss Chen says my emotional intelligence is advanced. Isaiah leaned into the hug without stopping his drawing. Does that mean you do like her? It means I'm figuring things out, and you should let me figure at my own speed. Okay, but figure faster because she likes you too, and it's weird watching grown-ups pretend they don't notice things. Victoria returned before Jordan could formulate a response. Her expression had shifted to something darker, more stressed. Everything okay? Skyline Tower. The investigation found more structural issues. They're expanding the scope, which means longer shutdown, which means the project timeline is completely destroyed. She sat back down heavily. 3 years of planning, hundreds of millions invested, and we're dead in the water because someone cut corners on support systems. Jordan knew about cutting corners, had seen it on construction sites, had reported it to supervisors who didn't want to hear about problems that would delay schedules. The industry ran on calculated risk. How much safety could you sacrifice before consequences caught up? They find out who's responsible? Subcontractor used inferior materials, forged inspection certificates. We're building a case, but it's complicated because the company's dissolved, Assets moved offshore. Very professional disappearing act. Victoria rubbed her temples. The project was supposed to revitalize downtown. Now it's a half-finished monument to corporate sabotage. Isaiah looked up from his drawing. What's sabotage? When someone breaks something on purpose, Jordan explained. Usually to hurt someone else. That's mean. Why would someone do that? Money, usually. Or revenge. Victoria's expression was grim. In this case, probably both. They sat in silence for a moment. Jordan thought about the timing. Victoria's accident had happened at Skyline Tower, and now the project was collapsing under investigation. Coincidence? Or something more deliberate? You think the beam that fell on your car was part of this? Victoria met his eyes, and Jordan saw the answer before she spoke. The investigation is ongoing, but between us? Yes. I think someone wanted me hurt or dead, and they were willing to destroy a $300 million project to make it happen. The casual mention of attempted murder, delivered in the same tone someone might use to discuss weather, was jarring. Jordan glanced at Isaiah, who'd put his earbuds back in and was absorbed in his meta-drawing. Who wants you dead? That's a longer list than you'd think. I didn't build a $3 billion empire by being universally loved. Victoria's smile was sharp, humorless. But if I had to guess? My ex-husband. He's been very quiet since the divorce, which usually means he's planning something loud. What's he do? Real estate development, same as me. We started the company together 20 years ago. I had the vision, he had the family connections. For a while it worked. Then I discovered he was cutting corners, bribing inspectors, endangering people to save money. She looked towards Skyline Tower, visible in the distance. We fought about it. The board had to choose sides. They chose me. He's never forgiven that. Jordan absorbed this. Victoria's wealth came from the same place his poverty did, but her battles were fought with lawyers and boards instead of medical bills and shift work. Different scale, same fundamental struggle against systems designed to grind people down. He dangerous? Dominic? Victoria considered the question seriously. Vindictive, definitely. Connected? Absolutely. Dangerous? I've spent 8 years assuming not, but after Skyline, she trailed off. I honestly don't know anymore. You should get security. I have security. Robert's very protective, and the company employs a professional team. She glanced at Jordan. But thank you for worrying. Not worrying, just practical. You can't run a company if you're dead. Noted. Victoria's phone buzzed again. She ignored it this time. I should let you two get on with your Saturday. I just wanted to give you the medical assistance paperwork. Isaiah pulled out his earbuds. Are you leaving? I'm not done drawing you yet. What are you drawing? Victoria leaned over to look at the sketchbook. Her expression softened immediately. Isaiah had captured them on the bench, rendered in colored pencil with surprising accuracy. Jordan's protective posture, Victoria's careful distance, Isaiah himself in the middle connecting them. It's us, being friends. Isaiah showed the drawing with pride. I'm going to give it to Dad so he remembers that making friends is good, even when it's scary. The emotional intelligence comment from Isaiah's teacher suddenly made more sense. The kid read situations like some people read books, understood undercurrents and tensions that should have been invisible to 8-year-olds. That's beautiful. Victoria's voice came out rougher than usual. Your mother taught you well. She taught me that people need people, that even when someone dies, you don't stop needing people. You just need different people. Isaiah packed up his art supplies with the methodical care Maya had always demonstrated. Dad forgets that sometimes. He thinks he can do everything alone because that's what his dad did. But his dad died and left everyone sad. So maybe doing everything alone isn't actually the smart choice. Jordan's throat tightened. Maya must have talked to Isaiah about this during those last months when she knew she was dying. and wanted to make sure her son understood things. Don't let Dad close himself off. Make sure he knows it's okay to need help. The echoes of her voice in Isaiah's words were almost unbearably clear. Victoria stood, business folder tucked under one arm, Isaiah's framed drawing under the other. "I'll see you Monday, Mr. Hayes. And Isaiah, thank you for the drawing. It's going to have a place of honor in my office." "You're welcome, Miss Victoria." Isaiah shouldered his backpack. "You should come have dinner with us sometime. Dad makes really good spaghetti, and Mrs. Ruby always brings extra food, so there's plenty." Jordan opened his mouth to deflect, but Victoria spoke first. "I'd like that, if your dad's okay with it." They both looked at Jordan, waiting. He thought about his father's pride, about Maya's promises, about Isaiah's too wise understanding that isolation wasn't strength. Thought about the wedding ring still on its chain around his neck, and the third promise he'd been avoiding for 3 years. "Spaghetti night is Thursday, 6 o'clock. Apartment above the garage, you know where." "I'll be there." Victoria smiled, genuine warmth breaking through the CEO polish. "Thank you." She left, and Jordan watched her go with the uncomfortable awareness that something fundamental had shifted. The boundaries he'd been maintaining, employer and employee, grateful and obligated, his world and hers, were dissolving faster than he could reinforce them. "You like her," Isaiah observed, matter of fact. "You already said that." "Yeah, but now you admitted it by inviting her to dinner. That's boyfriend-girlfriend stuff." "It's spaghetti, not a marriage proposal." Isaiah grinned, the expression so much like Maya's that Jordan's chest ached. "Mom used to say all the big things start small. First you share spaghetti, then you share your life." "When did you get so wise?" "I've always been wise. You just started paying attention." Isaiah took Jordan's hand as they headed back toward the truck. "It's okay, you know, to like someone who isn't Mom. She wouldn't want you to be alone forever." The third promise echoed in Jordan's head. "When you're ready, love again." He wasn't ready. Wasn't sure he'd ever be ready. But Isaiah's hand in his, the medical assistant's paperwork in his jacket pocket, the impossible math slowly becoming merely difficult. Maybe ready wasn't something you felt. Maybe it was something you chose. Monday brought corporate chaos. The Skyline Tower situation had metastasized over the weekend. News coverage, investor panic, emergency board meetings. Jordan arrived at 8 to find the executive floor in controlled crisis mode. Robert intercepted him at the elevator. "Bad day to be new. Victoria's been in meetings since 5 a.m. Board wants answers, investors want reassurance, and the media wants blood." Robert looked exhausted in a way that suggested he'd been dealing with this all weekend. "Your office is safe territory. I'd suggest staying there unless specifically summoned." Jordan took the advice. He spent the morning finalizing his vendor consolidation proposal, building presentations that would show department heads exactly how much money they were wasting and exactly how to stop. By noon, he had a 90-slide deck that reduced complex operational inefficiency to simple cost-benefit analysis. His phone buzzed. Text from Victoria. "Need you in my office. Bring the fleet operations analysis." Jordan grabbed his laptop and headed to the 30th floor. Victoria's office looked like a war room. Whiteboards covered in timelines and cost projections. Her desk buried in documents. 3 different coffee cups suggesting she'd been here for hours. She stood at the windows, phone to her ear, speaking in clipped professional tones that suggested barely controlled fury. She ended the call, turned to face Jordan. The stress showed in her face, new lines around her eyes, tension in her shoulders, the bandage gone from her forehead, revealing a scar that was healing angry and red. "The board wants to cut costs. 20% across all departments, effective immediately." Her voice was flat, exhausted. "They're panicking about Skyline Tower delays, trying to show investors we're being fiscally responsible." 20%? Jordan did the math. That's catastrophic to certain programs, yes. Victoria moved to her desk, pulled up a spreadsheet. Including the new medical assistance fund. They want it suspended pending budget review. The words hit like falling beams. The fund that would match Jordan's $16,000, that would turn impossible math into difficult math, gone because investors needed reassurance and the board needed scapegoats. When does this take effect? They're voting tomorrow. Robert thinks it'll pass. Victoria rubbed her temples. I can fight it, but I need ammunition. I need something that shows we can cut costs without sacrificing employee benefits. Jordan opened his laptop, pulled up the fleet operations analysis. $400,000 in annual savings, conservative estimate, could probably push it to $500 with aggressive vendor renegotiation. Show me. They spent the next 2 hours going through every detail. Jordan walked Victoria through the current waste, the consolidation strategy, the usage optimization that would pay for itself in 6 months. She asked sharp questions, poked at assumptions, made him defend every number. By the time they finished, she'd integrated his analysis into a broader cost-cutting strategy that would save Palmer Holdings $2.3 million annually without touching employee benefits. This might work. Victoria leaned back in her chair, looking slightly less defeated. If I can present this tomorrow before they vote, show them we have a real plan, they might back off the panic cuts. Happy to help. Jordan closed his laptop. For what it's worth, cutting employee benefits during a crisis is short-sighted. People remember when companies abandon them, and they leave as soon as they can. I know, but boards don't think about people. They think about stock prices and quarterly reports and investor confidence. She looked at him directly. I'm sorry about the medical fund. I created it for you, and now it might disappear before you can use it. Not just for me. You said it yourself, 270 employees. Statistically, some face medical crises. If the fund helps anyone, it's worth fighting for. Even if it doesn't help Isaiah? Jordan thought about the math. 16,000 over 4 weeks. 31,000 already saved. 47 total. Insurance covering 23. 70,000 against 96,000 needed. 26,000 short. Still impossible, just a different kind of impossible. I'll figure something out. Always do. Victoria's expression shifted to something Jordan couldn't quite read. You know what I admire about you? You don't panic. Everything's impossible, and you just keep solving for the next variable, like eventually the equation will balance. What else is there? Panic doesn't fix problems. Work does. Most people don't see it that way. She stood, moved back to the windows. They see the gap between what they have and what they need, and they freeze. Or they give up. You just keep building the bridge from one side, hoping you'll meet in the middle. The observation was uncomfortably accurate. Jordan had been building bridges across impossible gaps since Maya got sick, since he'd dropped out of Cornell, since his father had died owing more than he owned. Panic was a luxury for people who had the option of falling apart. Your ex-husband. Jordan changed the subject before it got too personal. Dominic. He connected to the Skyline Tower sabotage? Victoria's expression hardened. Can't prove it yet, but the subcontractor that used inferior materials? They dissolved 3 weeks before we discovered the problem. Assets moved to offshore accounts, paper trail deliberately obscured. That level of planning suggests inside knowledge and serious resources. Sounds like you need a forensic accountant, not a fleet operations manager. I have forensic accountants. They're working it. She turned back to face him. But they need time, and time is something I don't have much of. The board votes tomorrow. Investors are threatening to pull funding, and if I can't stabilize this situation quickly, I could lose control of my own company. The stakes clarified. This wasn't just about one building or one project. This was about Victoria's entire empire potentially collapsing because someone had engineered the right pressure points. What happens if you lose the company? Dominic probably acquires it. He's been quietly buying stock through shell companies for months. I've been tracking it, but couldn't prove the connection until recently. If the board loses confidence in me, they could force a sale. He gets everything I built, and I get to watch him dismantle it. Victoria's voice was ice over fury. 20 years of work. Gone because I married the wrong person and didn't see what he was until too late. Jordan thought about Maya, about the promises she'd made him swear to, about how love and trust could create as many problems as they solved. You couldn't have known. I should have known. All the signs were there. The corner cutting, the bribes, the casual disregard for safety. I saw them and rationalized them because we were building something together. Because I loved him. Because I wanted to believe people could change. She laughed, bitter. My father used to say the most expensive mistakes are the ones your heart makes. He was right. The parallel to Jordan's situation was obvious, both of them navigating the aftermath of love and loss, trying to protect what mattered while systems designed to extract value ground away at the edges. Different scale, same fundamental battle. The board meeting tomorrow. You need me there? Victoria looked surprised. You'd do that? Sit through 4 hours of corporate politics to defend a benefits program? It's not just a benefits program. It's the difference between my son getting surgery on time or waiting until I save enough. Jordan met her gaze. So yeah, I'll be there. Tell me what you need me to present, and I'll present it. Thank you. The gratitude in her voice was genuine, unpolished. I'll have Robert send you the board briefing materials. Meeting starts at 9. Try to arrive by 8:30 so we can coordinate. Jordan nodded, gathered his laptop. He was halfway to the door when Victoria spoke again. Jordan? He turned. She rarely used his first name, had maintained Mr. Hayes' formality even as their relationship shifted towards something less defined. Hearing it now felt significant. Thursday, spaghetti. I'm looking forward to it. It's just pasta and sauce from a jar, nothing fancy. I know. That's why I'm looking forward to it. She smiled, and for just a moment, the CEO mask disappeared completely. I've had enough fancy to last a lifetime. Normal sounds perfect. Jordan left before his face could betray anything his words shouldn't. The elevator ride down gave him time to reconstruct his defenses, remind himself that Victoria Palmer lived in a different world, and this intersection of their lives was temporary, circumstantial, driven by crisis rather than anything sustainable. But Isaiah's voice echoed in his head. Mom used to say all the big things start small. First you share spaghetti, then you share your life. The board meeting Tuesday morning was everything Jordan expected, and worse. 18 people around a mahogany table that probably cost more than his truck, all of them in suits that screamed wealth and power, all of them looking at Jordan like he was a particularly interesting bug. Victoria introduced him as the new fleet operations manager, mentioned his background briefly, then let him present. Jordan walked them through the numbers. $400,000 in annual savings, achievable within 6 months through vendor consolidation and usage optimization. He showed them the current waste, the proposed solutions, the implementation timeline. Kept it factual, professional, let the data do the heavy lifting. The CFO, a man named Harrison with silver hair and sharper eyes, interrupted halfway through. This is impressive analysis for someone who's been here a week. How'd you identify these inefficiencies so quickly? I built similar systems in the Navy. Fleet operations is fleet operations, whether it's military vehicles or corporate cars. The principles don't change. Jordan advanced to the next slide. The bigger question is, why nobody caught this earlier? Silence. Jordan had apparently crossed some invisible line by suggesting Palmer Holdings had been operationally negligent. Victoria's expression didn't change, but he caught a flash of approval in her eyes. Harrison leaned back in his chair. Fair point. Continue. Jordan finished the presentation, answered questions about implementation timelines and vendor selection and risk mitigation. By the time he was done, the room's energy had shifted from skeptical to cautiously optimistic. Victoria took over. expanding Jordan's fleet analysis into her broader cost-cutting strategy. She showed them $2.3 million in annual savings across multiple departments, all achievable without touching employee benefits or cutting critical programs. The medical assistance fund stayed funded, the panic cuts disappeared, and the board left the meeting looking slightly less terrified about investor reactions. Well done. Robert caught up with Jordan in the hallway after. You just saved several programs and probably a dozen jobs. The board was ready to slash and burn before your presentation gave Victoria ammunition to fight back. Happy to help. Jordan checked his phone. Text from Ruby. Isaiah's school called. He's in the nurse's office. Not emergency, but you should call. Jordan's stomach dropped. He called immediately. The school nurse answered, her voice calm and professional in a way that was supposed to be reassuring, but just made him more anxious. Mr. Hayes, Isaiah's fine. He got dizzy during PE, sat down for a while. We took his vitals, heart rate is elevated but not dangerously. He's resting now, but we wanted you to know. I'm coming to get him. That's not necessary. I'm coming. Jordan ended the call, turned to Robert. Family emergency. I need to leave. Go. I'll tell Victoria. Jordan made it to the school in 20 minutes. Isaiah was sitting in the nurse's office, pale but alert, drawing in his sketchbook to pass the time. He looked up when Jordan entered, and his expression cycled through relief and embarrassment. I'm okay, Dad. It was just a dizzy thing. Yeah, well, we're going to the doctor anyway. Let's go. Jordan signed Isaiah out, tried not to let his fear show. Elevated heart rate, dizziness, the valve deteriorating faster than projected, the 6-week surgery timeline maybe not being fast enough. The emergency room at Children's Hospital knew them by now. Recognized Jordan's face, pulled Isaiah's chart, got them into an exam room within 30 minutes. The cardiologist on call was young, maybe 30, with the kind of calm competence that came from dealing with scared parents daily. She listened to Isaiah's heart, checked his vitals, reviewed his chart. Heart rate is elevated but stable. The dizziness is concerning but not immediately dangerous. We need to move the surgery up. It's already scheduled for 3 weeks from now. I mean this week. Friday if we can get the OR scheduled. She pulled up something on her computer. Isaiah's valve is deteriorating faster than we anticipated. Waiting 3 more weeks increases risk significantly. The timeline collapsed. Jordan's carefully constructed plan, save $16,000 over 4 weeks, use the medical fund match if it survived board cuts, scraped together enough to hit the hospital's payment threshold, disintegrated. I don't have the money. The words came out flat, defeated. Insurance covers $23,000. I have 31 saved. That's it. The doctor's expression shifted to professional sympathy. We have payment plan options. For $96,000 in 5 days? What payment plan covers that? She didn't have an answer. Jordan sat there in the exam room, Isaiah on the table, swinging his legs and trying to pretend he wasn't listening, while reality reset itself around impossible math and inadequate time frames. Do the surgery anyway. Jordan heard himself speaking before he'd fully decided. I'll sign whatever payment agreements you need, but if Isaiah needs it Friday, we do it Friday. The doctor nodded, relief visible that she didn't have to argue. I'll get the OR scheduled. Someone from billing will contact you about the financial arrangements. Isaiah was quiet on the drive home. Jordan tried to make conversation, got mostly one-word responses. Finally pulled into a gas station parking lot, turned to face his son directly. Talk to me, sunshine. I don't want you to worry about money because of me. Isaiah's voice was small, 8 years old and scared despite his advanced emotional intelligence. I heard what the doctor said about how much it costs. That's a lot. It's a lot, Jordan agreed, no point lying. But you're worth more than any amount of money. You understand that? I guess. Isaiah picked at a loose thread on his backpack. But what if we can't pay? What happens then? Then we figure it out. That's what people do. They figure things out. Jordan reached over, tilted Isaiah's chin up so they were eye to eye. You don't worry about money. That's my job. Your job is to get through this surgery and heal up so we can go back to normal life. Deal? Deal. Isaiah managed a small smile. And then Miss Victoria comes for spaghetti on Thursday. Yeah, and then spaghetti. Jordan started the truck again. You like her, huh? She's nice. And she looks at you the way Mom used to look at you. Like you're important. The observation hit hard. Jordan had spent 3 years avoiding exactly that. The possibility that someone else could look at him the way Maya had, could matter to him the way Maya had mattered. The third promise loomed large, permission he'd been granted, but couldn't quite accept. Isaiah, you know I loved your mom very much. I know. And I'm always going to love her. She'll always be important to me, and to you. I know that too. Isaiah's tone suggested Jordan was explaining something obvious. But she's gone, and you're still here, and being alone forever seems sad. Mom wouldn't want you to be sad. The simple logic, delivered without drama or emotional manipulation, was impossible to argue with. Maya wouldn't have wanted him isolated and grieving forever. She'd made him promise exactly the opposite, had used her last coherent moments to extract oaths about his future happiness. You're right. Your mom wouldn't want me to be sad forever. Jordan pulled back into traffic. But that doesn't mean I know how to not be sad. It's been 3 years, and I still forget sometimes that she's gone. Still think about calling her to tell her something, or turn to ask her opinion, and then remember. Miss Chen says that's normal. That grief doesn't go away, you just get better at carrying it. Isaiah went back to his drawing. I still talk to Mom sometimes. In my head, tell her about school and my drawings and stuff. Do you think she hears? Jordan's throat tightened. Yeah, sunshine. I think she hears. They drove the rest of the way home in comfortable silence. Ruby was waiting on her porch, concern evident in her posture. Jordan gave her the brief version, Isaiah's heart, the moved-up surgery, the impossible money situation that had just gotten more impossible. What are you going to do? Ruby's voice was gentle, not judging, just asking. Whatever I have to. Jordan headed upstairs before she could press for details he didn't have. Inside the apartment, Jordan pulled out his phone, stared at Victoria's personal number. The medical assistance fund might not survive the board cuts. Even if it did, there wasn't time to save $16,000 by Friday. He needed a different solution, needed to swallow his pride and ask for help he couldn't repay. The phone rang before he could dial, Victoria's name on the screen. I heard about Isaiah. No preamble, straight to the point. Robert said you left for a family emergency. Is he okay? Surgery got moved up to Friday. Heart's deteriorating faster than expected. Silence on the other end. Then, what do you need? The question was simple, direct, offering help without making him beg for it. Jordan closed his eyes, thought about his father's pride and his son's life, and which mattered more. $96,000 by Friday. I know I can't ask that, but I don't know what else to do. You're not asking. I'm offering. Victoria's voice was steady, certain. I'll have the money transferred to the hospital tomorrow. Consider it a loan. Pay it back whenever you can. Or don't. Either way, Isaiah gets his surgery Friday. Victoria, I can't. Yes, you can. And you will. Because your son needs this, and you love him more than you love your pride. She paused. I'm not doing this because I feel obligated. I'm doing it because you'd do the same for me if our situations were reversed. And because some debts can't be measured in money. Jordan's defenses crumbled. All the walls he'd built, all the boundaries he'd maintained, all the careful distance, gone. Victoria Palmer had just offered him $96,000 like it was nothing, had framed it as a loan to protect his dignity, had made it impossible to refuse without being selfish. "Thank you." The words felt inadequate. "I'll pay you back, every penny. It might take years, but I'll—" "Jordan, stop. We'll figure it out later. Right now, just focus on Isaiah." Her voice softened. "And Thursday, spaghetti. I'm still coming unless you tell me not to. You're still invited." "Good. I'll bring wine. See you then." The call ended. Jordan sat in his kitchen, phone in hand, trying to process what had just happened. $96,000. Given freely, no strings attached, just help offered because it was needed, and she could provide it. Isaiah appeared in the doorway, sketchbook under his arm. "Was that Miss Victoria?" "Yeah." "Is she helping with the money?" "Yeah, sunshine. She's helping." Isaiah nodded, satisfied, like this was the obvious and expected outcome. "I told you she was nice, and that she likes you." Jordan pulled his son into a hug, held him tight enough to feel his heartbeat, irregular, struggling, counting down. Friday. Surgery. 6 hours, and then recovery, and then normal life, whatever that meant now. "Go get ready for bed. School tomorrow, assuming the nurse clears you." Isaiah went. Jordan stayed at the table, Maya's sketchbook in front of him, wedding ring still on its chain around his neck. The third promise echoed louder than it had in 3 years. "When you're ready, love again." Maybe ready wasn't something you felt. Maybe it was something someone else showed you. $96,000 at a time. Spaghetti dinners and fleet operations presentations and drawings that captured truth better than words ever could. Jordan opened the sketchbook to Maya's sketch of him, the one done when they were young and everything was possible. That version of himself looked back, hopeful, certain, unaware of the grief waiting in his future, but maybe also unaware of what came after grief. Maybe unaware that love could exist in different forms, that promises could be kept even while moving forward, that Isaiah was right about needing people even after loss. Thursday. Spaghetti. Victoria Palmer sitting at his modest table in his modest apartment, sharing a meal that cost $12 to make, while she'd just given him $96,000 without hesitation. The math finally balanced, just not the way Jordan had expected. Some debts couldn't be measured in money. Some bridges met in the middle despite impossible gaps. Some rescues, it turned out, worked in both directions.